Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Hello, welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Tyler Mon, Sam Dykstra, Benjamin Hill, the three amigos ride again. I'm in like a construction zone today. We got some work going on in my house. So if you hear like or whack, 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 it's not, I'm not like ripping out walls. Somebody else is ripping out walls. So just in case you guys were wondering, what's up, fellas?
Yeah, I just want to make that clear for our listeners. You are not doing the construction work.
I'm not doing any work. Yeah, no, I can't be trusted with a sledgehammer or anything else, I assume.
Even just a sledgehammer, not like a saw, not a circular.
Yeah, no, exactly, just the sledgehammer. Well, we are coming to you today on June 11th, 2026, after one of the most brilliant comebacks in sports history last night, and that is, of course, the San Francisco Giants, who walked off after being down 8 to sink the Nationals in Wednesday afternoon's finale at Oracle Park, a wild 11-10 walk-off win. Incredible stuff. I think that's all that happened last night, right?
People here on the streets are just wearing orange all over the place.
They're just talking about it constantly. Like, how about that comeback? And you're like, yeah, Bryce Eldridge, man, I couldn't believe it. You know, he comes out striking out. It's the whole thing. That was a whole big issue on Monday night. And then, you know, no, that's not, I don't think that's not it.
The people of Manhattan still claim the Giants. I think that's what's going on here.
A lot of Polo Grounds people who are like, they'll never be a San Francisco's team to me. No, we do come to you on a mammoth day today, and that is because, did you guys know, today is the 1-year anniversary of the Show Before the Show night at the home of the Somerset Patriots. It was last year on this day, Dave Merrick and the Somerset Patriots put together a night somehow in our honor, 3 dweebs who talk about minor league baseball on a weekly basis. And we got to have a night at a ballpark. My phone was suggesting all the pictures to me today from last year. Us, the 3 of us together, and us with Dan Marinas, and so many of our friends from MILB.com. That was a year. Can you believe that was a year ago already?
I hadn't realized that anniversary, Tyler, but
yeah.
that was a great day in Show Before the Show podcast history. We've talked this year about trying to do another Show Before the Show night at a ballpark. Haven't made it happen.
Suggestions still open. Anybody who is needing us.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew Seymour, GM of the Mississippi Mud Monsters. He has been in touch with me trying to get us down there.
To the logistic, as kids call
I would
it.
love to. Yeah, in Pearl, Mississippi, former home of the Mississippi Braves, now home to the Mud Monsters, an independent league team. Logistically, it's been tough. Logistically and cost-wise, it's been tough to figure it out, but really appreciate him reaching out there.
Yeah.
And we'd love to do that sort of thing again. And, it's funny you mentioned that big Giants comeback over the Nationals yesterday, because my son Harry is, over the last couple weeks, just obsessed with baseball the way he never has been. He's 5 years old. So I just I came home from work yesterday and he just had that game on. My wife Jill put it on for him. He just wants to have baseball. So we just kind of had it on the background and see a walk-off grand slam, to take a game from a to 11-10 win. And I was just like, Harry, look at this. It's a grand slam to win the game. He loves grand slams too. He's always talking about grand slams. Like if a team's losing by a certain amount, he's like, so they need a grand slam? He calculates baseball deficits by how many grand slams.
By how many grand slams you need. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a great moment. And then, then there was a basketball game and that was fun too. So good sports vibes all around. And let's keep the good vibes going. I was did not do my road trip that I'd scheduled, that I'd promoted on this podcast, and took a little time off. And that's a long story. Don't need to get into it now, but I'm feeling better this week and ready to keep the good vibes going.
Well, that's good. And we welcome you all into this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. You can get in touch with us, of course, podcast at milb.com, and give us your questions, your thoughts about this 2026 minor league baseball season as we near the midway point. And yeah, let's dive into it, fellas. It is obviously this stretch of the season is so interesting because we get to the point of the year where, teams, front offices have started rolling out their big time promos and everything, but we're like into the full swing. I know East Coast schools are not yet out. Is that right? Like, is Harry still in school right now?
Yeah, the New York City school calendar goes all the way up to the end of June.
It's like the end of June. Yeah.
I mean, part of that is living in a multicultural city with a lot of different holidays on the school calendar.
Yeah, that's true.
So to get in the requisite legally mandated 180 days or whatever it is, that school year goes deep into June, which I think parents, including, myself, are totally fine with because it's tough to find childcare in the summer. This whole network and the different camps and just different things you're cobbling together to make things work during the summer. So I'm okay with the long school year. But yeah, that's something I learned throughout the years with my ballpark road trips. I'd be like visiting a team on like August 11th and they'd be like, "Oh, you picked a bad night. School starts tomorrow." And I'd be like, "What?"
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of dystopian world am I in right now? You do not start school in mid-August. But there's different reasons for it, over the country. Some of it, in some regions, I feel like I've heard that it ties into like more the agricultural calendars and regions that have a lot of farm workers, and based on their schedule and their availabilities, it's more beneficial to start the school year earlier. So it was a wake up call to me because I just kind of thought it was a universal thing that school went into mid, or in New York City's case, late June and started right after Labor Day. But there are a lot of variables out there.
Yeah. But that means that we're getting to that time of the summer where, everybody's going to be heading to the ballpark and minor league teams are going to be packed and loaded for at least the next few months, which is one of the best times of year. And so with that, we open up Ben's Biz Banter for this week, presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, but we start with a note of memorial from Cedar Rapids, Ben, where a longtime minor league baseball legend, a personality, one of the people who makes minor league baseball go, has passed away.
Yeah, I was happy to be able to do this story this week, to pivot to it and get it out there. It's not necessarily a breaking news story, but this is someone I wrote about 11 years ago when I first visited the Cedar Rapids Colonels. Ron Rhodey Pline, the longtime clubhouse manager of the Cedar Rapids Colonels. I wrote a story about him back in 2015, with one of the angles being that he literally lived at the ballpark when Veterans Memorial Stadium opened in 2003, replacing a ballpark that had the same name and in the same location in Cedar Rapids. But when the new Veterans Memorial Stadium opened in 2003, it included an apartment just off the laundry room for Rhodey, the longtime clubhouse manager, and he literally lived at the ballpark in a quote-unquote night watchman capacity. But he was in the game of baseball, first with the Quad Cities Angels, and then when the Angels switched their affiliation to the Cedar Rapids Colonels in 1993, he just went to Cedar Rapids. And he was there all the way through 2017 as a clubby. He got the nickname Rhodey because he used to, in the early days of his career, like relentlessly pursue foul balls, so teams could use them for batting practice and not lose them, in a more cost-conscious era of minor league baseball. And he was called Roadrunner, and that got shortened to Rhodey. So he retired due to health issues in 2017, still came to almost every Cedar Rapids Colonels game, and he died this past January at the age of 81. And at the end of May, the Colonels had Rhodey Day at the ballpark, paying tribute. He grew up in Dubuque, which is about an hour from Cedar Rapids, so he had like friends and family there. They were playing the Quad Cities River Bandits, so it was a nice connection that, it was both the teams he had worked for, Quad Cities and Cedar Rapids. There were video messages, on the video board throughout the day, including one from Joe Madden, who first crossed paths with Rhodey when he was a player with the 1976 Quad Cities Angels. And the concession special was a Rhodey dog, just a plain hot dog. That's what Rhodey liked. But, I was talking to the Colonel's current GM, Sean Brandhorst, and he was like, what people have been saying to me in different forms, but again and again, is that he was the greatest Colonel ever, this clubhouse manager. I mean, that's how just associated with the franchise he was, what a presence he was at the ballpark. Sean said, Mike Trout is number 2 in that.
My mind goes to Mike Trout. So the fact that somebody can beat Mike Trout and not doubting
that's
that
pretty amazing.
In any fashion is amazing.
Yeah, so Rhodey number 1, Mike Trout number 2. But I was glad to write this story, 11 years after I met Rhodey and wrote about him to, memorialize him a little bit and just pay tribute to a minor league ballpark icon. Those are really my favorite type of stories, and the ones that as my career progresses, I feel are the most meaningful that I've had the opportunity and something I'm very grateful for to tell the stories of people around minor league baseball who might not have a lot written about them. And, it's just means a lot for me to be able to do that. So I was happy to circle around to Ron Rhodey Pline and what he meant to the Cedar Rapids Kernels. And you can check that out. That's my newsletter. Excuse me. I should not cough while I speak, but that's in my newsletter, The Baseball Traveler, new edition out today. It'll be on MILB/MLB.com tomorrow on Friday, the day this podcast comes out. So keep an eye out for it.
All right, Ben, let's keep going, and we're going to move from that to a story about another longtime minor league veteran, Larry Ward, who is the longest tenured broadcaster in Double-A. He is the voice of the Chattanooga Lookouts. Larry Ward is the reason why I know people in Chattanooga call it Chattanooga and not Chattanooga, because he said when he first started there, he said Chattanooga, and he just got worn out for it. So you have to say that second A, apparently, if you're talking about Chattanooga. But Larry Ward last year went viral and turned into even more of a legend. This is already April 23rd of last year when he had a very notable call. And you got a chance to do kind of the retrospective look back at that, Ben, at a call that we talked about and we've played on this show, in fact.
Yeah, maybe we can play it again in this episode here. But, I was in Chattanooga last month and talked to Larry. I wrote a feature about him the previous time I visited Chattanooga in 2021. And it was great to see Larry again, still with the team. He's in his late 70s now. He's been with the Lookouts for about 40 years. He's now, been the Lookouts broadcaster at Engel Stadium, then the entirety of the team's run at AT&T Field, and now at brand new Erlanger Park. So it's cool to catch up with Larry. I spent some time on the air with him, and I did an interview with him about hey, you've been around a long time. You never expected to go viral, and I just wanted to get his perspective on it. So we have a video as part of this article with Larry talking about his going viral for saying "holy cats" during a bizarre minor league baseball play. And maybe we can just play that call and then check out my article and corresponding video to see Larry's reaction to going viral in his late 70s after decades on the mic with the Chattanooga Lookouts.
Delivers on a broken bat, ground ball. The bat went right by Benoit. Now the ball hits the bat that's on the ground, and the runner escapes to third. I have never, ever seen that in my 45 years of calling baseball. Holy cats, a base hit and an RBI off of a broken bat, giving the runner another chance from second to third. Wow. I don't know how many times a year that happens in all the games that are played in baseball.
My favorite tidbit from this story, Ben, is that he said he didn't really know where holy cats came from, but this is from the piece on MLB.com. Quote, he speculated that it was something he said when he was a kid growing up on a ranch in Eastern Oregon that, quote, stayed in the back of my mind, unquote. I love the idea of just 7-year-old Larry Ward walking around like, holy cats. And then, however many years, 70 years later, it just popped into his head at the craziest moment that he had seen in a baseball game. That's such an awesome story.
Yeah, and I like to talk to the veterans, as you guys know, and Larry Ward's been around the game a long time, and for the love of the game is such a cliche, but when you're still doing it at his age, it's because you just don't want to stop doing it. You just love baseball and love being around the game.
There are far worse things to be doing in the world today. So that'll swing us over to something that is Holy Cats-esque, and that is the newest Crooked Numbers, which is up at MLB.com. Crooked Numbers, of course, a monthly column dedicated to the on-field oddities and absurdities in minor league baseball, of which we get a lot. And there's some really good stuff in this Crooked Numbers column. Ben, I don't even know where to begin with this one. What was your favorite thing to write about for this Crooked Numbers?
Yeah, I mean, one is this kind of the obvious, like, weirdest play of the month of May in the Biloxi Shuckers Montgomery Biscuits game on May 14th, when Austin Overn with the Biscuits hit what seemed like a run-of-the-mill double down the right field line, and then right fielder Damon Keith went to field it, sliding to cut it off, but he slid over the ball and buried it in the dirt. So if you've not seen that video, it literally got buried in the dirt. They had to stop the game. There's like a 5-minute delay as all these different players try to dig this ball out of the dirt because an outfielder slid over it while trying to field it. That, of course, is like why we love baseball, because this kind of stuff happens all the time. Has this ever happened? I don't know. Not that we know, but the fact that like day in and day out, you can just have those kind of moments of something like, I didn't know that could ever happen. And
Yeah,
it
I
did.
don't know,
So,
like what, there's no ground rule for that, I assume, right? Like you can still, well, I don't know because
oh, right. Yeah.
you can't like reach in and pull it out. The video is hilarious because he slides over the top of it and the ball just disappears. It's hilarious to watch, I should say. It is not hilarious. Damon Keith, the right fielder for Biloxi, you can tell like that does not feel good to go down into a full speed slide and land on top of a baseball. And he gets up and he's kind of hobbled, and then he goes to try to dig the ball out. But that's more of a hindrance than a ball getting stuck in the outfield padding. So like, can you throw your hands up and be like, sorry, I buried this baseball? Do we know what the rule is?
I don't know, but we should mention that it was a home run. So I can.
It
The
was
rule is
inside
like, it
the
was
Parker.
still. It was it turned into an inside the park home run. I mean, like what?
How deep does the ball have to go?
Yeah.
Before it's no longer in the ballpark and it's outside of the ground rule.
Yeah.
Is it like you have to have a full funeral? Like it has to be 6 feet under?
The-
Like how far? There's got to be a line here somewhere.
I know we have listeners who are umpires or were umpires. If you know the ground rule for this, please email us podcast@milb.com.
But the idea that it's a ground rule would mean that could change at every ballpark.
That's true. That's true. Because if you're playing on an artificial turf surface, which I know we don't have any of in minor league baseball now.
No.
Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn, right. Brooklyn is artificial turf. Yeah, I always forget that.
There's quite a few others that I'm kind of forgetting about.
Yeah,
right
I guess
now.
like the field turf surfaces.
Yeah.
I know.
Not
I
the
remember
artificial turf we think of when we were kids.
Yeah. But yeah, like wouldn't be able to, punch a baseball through that and bury it. So theoretically, like that ground rule doesn't exist at the artificial turf fields, but in a
No,
grass,
but it is literally a
place-
ground rule because it's
Yeah.
like, what do you rule when the ball is stuck in the ground? I mean, that's funny though, because if it does get stuck, in outfield padding or roll somewhere, or lost in ivy, roll
Yeah.
somewhere where you can throw up your hands and stop. So you feel like if, the ball is buried in the dirt and I can't get it out, that you'd throw up your hands and get a double out of it. But I guess when it was the fielder who, was quote unquote at fault for it being buried in the first place, then it's just kind of like tough. But we'll never see that again.
It just opens up the possibility of groundskeepers creating like a rough in the outfield. There are certain areas that are going to be the green, and then there are certain areas that are going to be the rough.
Yeah.
And hey, we have a sand trap in left center.
I do remember back in the day, the Rockies experimented with letting the infield grass grow longer because, the ball jumps off the bat here. And they thought like, well, at least if we have longer grass, it might make things a little bit more equalized for the infielders. But I would be interested to know if you are the head groundskeeper at Montgomery's Riverwalk Stadium, is that a good sign for the health of your field? I would think so, that it's soft and you can, punch if you need to aerate, you need to do things. Or is that like, oh man, we're way overwatering this? I don't know. So I would be really interested to know from somebody who understands the mechanics of keeping a ballpark healthy. What does that say about the field surface?
Yeah, I had that question too, and of course did not pursue it. But yeah, is that a good thing that a guy sliding over a ball could lodge it in the ground so it can't be extracted?
It's like a
I don't
magic
know.
act. Like you look at it and he goes and slides and then the ball just disappears and it's amazing. It's a good one. Go read Crooked Numbers. Always one of my favorite things to read at MLB.com. And we will go from Crooked Numbers to a news item from minor league baseball that we teased a couple of weeks ago and is officially here. And we will read from the news release itself at milb.com/Wichita. Quote, the organization formerly known as the Wichita Wind Surge announced today that it will officially rebrand as the Wichita Turbo Tubs, ushering in a new era of fun, entertainment, and community connection for baseball fans across Wichita, Kansas. Okay, let's go through this sort of piece by piece. This is a pretty young franchise, Ben. Turbo Tubs was an alternate identity announced a couple of seasons ago that really took off for its meaning, its connection to the local fan base and the community. Give us your thoughts on this Wichita news.
Yeah, interesting situation for sure. The Wichita Wind Surge were supposed to debut in 2020 as a AAA team, but then, of course, a lot happened in 2020, and they played their first season in 2021 as the AA affiliate of the Minnesota Twins, and in that capacity, they remain. The Wind Surge name, has an aviation theme. There's a lot of aviation history in Wichita, and obviously a lot of wind as well. Sharp-looking logos designed by Todd Radom, who is not, icon in the design world, but it's not done a lot of minor league work in recent years, I don't believe. But I always like the look. But I feel like the Wind Surge name, I guess, as we're seeing now, never really fully caught on, because it's pretty rare for a team to debut and then 5 years later say we're just going to rebrand. Turbo Tubs and the Wind Surge's press release announcing that Turbo Tubs will be a full-time identity in 2026 doesn't talk about the Turbo Tubs at all, like what a Turbo Tub is, which I felt was context that was kind of needed, but maybe because they've been playing as the Turbo Tubs frequently as an alternate identity since 2022, maybe they assume their fans know that by now. But if you're wondering, why are the Wichita Wind Surge becoming the Turbo Tubs? There's a whole lot of backstory on this, really, but starting in 1972, the city of Wichita hosted an annual 10-day river festival that often had antique bathtub races featuring tubs mounted on rafts. And I believe that in 2008, those tub races on rafts in the Arkansas River, or they call it the Arkansas River over in Kansas, I believe they do.
They do. There are regions that call it the Arkansas River, despite still referring to the state as Arkansas, I think.
Yeah, it is, as I said, that it is true. I'm not just making a joke there. The Arkansas River. Those tub races were discontinued in 2008. I think maybe there's a chance that they come back. So the Turbo Tubs is about these tub races that used to occur on the river. Then if you look at the logo, and keep in mind that there will be like new updated Turbo Tubs logos next year for when they become the full-time identity of the team currently known as the Wind Surge. But as the alternate identity exists, and I assume this will be incorporated into the new look Turbo Tubs next year, but the Turbo Tub in the logo is piloted by a troll. And this is a troll found along the water walk in Wichita near the Keeper of the Plains statue. And the troll is a statue underneath a grate along this water walk. And I forget the story of why there is a statue of a troll chained up under a grate, but it's this kind of weird, quirky Americana Wichita thing. So you have the combination of kind of ramshackle tub races on rafts in the Arkansas River, along with, and those in the team's logo are piloted by a troll, and that troll is a reference to an iconic statue in which a troll is chained up under a grate near the river. I mean,
iconic
baseball. Yeah, I mean,
it's so dark.
Yeah, I have pictures of that troll statue, and he's just like staring up. His arms and legs are chained. He's staring up like in agony and anger at you. It is a pretty bizarre thing, but apparently, from a minor league baseball context, this troll has gotten out from under his statue, his underground lair in which he's chained up, and is now piloting tubs and tub races along the Arkansas River. So that's going to be the new full-time identity, Turbo Tubs, 2027 and beyond. The new identity of the team, now known as the Wichita Wind Surge.
Yeah, I'll say the news release refers to them as the franchise formerly known as the Wind Surge, but they will play the remainder of the season as the Wind Surge. I gotta say, I'm happy about this. That was that was the worst name in minor league. Wind Surge was just like, Turbo Tubs is way better. It's way better. You're doing the right thing, Wichita.
Yeah, I can't help but think it. I think the name was not so much the logos and the look, but the name was just
the
a
name
tough
just didn't
name to,
hit.
like, say and embrace. And
That's it. I did like the logos. I
Yeah.
think we talked about it at the time. Like it had that kind of like retro feel to it, almost like a gas station, feel. But like
Yeah, that's kind of that Pegasus horse in it. Yeah. Like the visual brand wasn't bad, but the name was just like it never really hit. And I get like trying to loop something in with the W. Formerly there was a Texas League team named the Wichita Wranglers, so I get trying to go with the WW spelling, even though I guess Wranglers is not a W sound. But still, like I get the idea, but Wind Surge just never really I was never a fan of that. So Turbo Tubs I'm in on that, Wichita. Not that you cared, but I'm in on that. So there we go. All right, you guys, final point. And I don't have many details on this. In our show rundown, it just says, quote, Jacksonville Mark in the Park. And it's Mark with a C. So I'm assuming that our own pal Mark Schwartz has something to do with this. But tell me about Mark in the Park in Jacksonville.
Yeah, final promo. This happened on Wednesday, which would be June 10th. Yes, getting my days right. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp had Mark in the Park night, and they were spelling it M-A-R-C, but it was like a play on Bark in the Park night where you can bring your dog. This one was like, if you're Mark or you know someone named Mark, bring Mark to the park. And I just like the ridiculousness of this idea, Mark in the Park night. And it was inspired by a team employee named Mark Spera. I think he's like a corporate sales account executive. But 2 years ago, he broke his ankle pulling tarp. And this recap comes courtesy of VP of Promotions and Events for the Jumbo Shrimp, David Ratz. But he wrote me this morning and said, all started 2 years ago when Mark Spera was bitten by the tarp monster and broke his ankle on the fourth tarp pull of the day. Florida problems. Once back in the office, he jokingly lobbied for a Mark in the Park night. And then the team went ahead and did it 2 years later. One of the highlights of the night included a Mark in the Park t-shirt giveaway that prominently features Mark in the spot where he fell on the field and broke his ankle. And if you zoom in, you can see his ankle has completely snapped off. So you could get, anyway, if you were named Mark, M-A-R-C or M-A-R-K, or you had a Mark sound in your name, you could get a free ticket. They had over 45 free Marks in attendance, and Mark Spera, the man of the hour himself, he signed his T-shirts. He took photos. He threw out the first pitch, and just had a great night for that particular Mark and for all Marks. And I just want to highlight a good minor league promotion. So there you have it. Mark in the Park night, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp.
I am glad that you can go if you're Mark with a K. For a second, I thought it was only going to be Mark with a C, and that really limits your Mark base, I feel like, right? Probably way more Marks with K.
Probably. I mean, if it was M-A-R-C, they would have missed the mark. Yeah.
Ben's Biz Banter presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. And all right, we've got an interview for this week's 556th episode of the show before the show. Sam, give us a preview of what's coming up after the break.
Yeah, normally college baseball is kind of outside our purview here on the show before the show because we talk so much about minor league baseball, but it is Omaha season in college baseball with the 8 teams heading to Nebraska to face off and determine a college national champion at Division I this year. And I was looking around the schedule in the Northeast this week because I kind of wanted to get out to a game and get an interview for this week. And I realized the Portland Sea Dogs were visiting the Reading Fightin' Phils this week. And I thought that was a perfect opportunity to interview Anthony Eyanson, the number 69 overall prospect in baseball right now, arguably the breakout pitching prospect of the year, a 3rd-round pick by the Red Sox last year, but also the starting pitcher for LSU last year in its national championship clincher against Coastal Carolina. So coming up on that 1-year anniversary, I thought it was a good opportunity to talk to Eyanson about that experience, what you do to prepare to pitch in a national championship game, how he still carries that experience with him, and how he's been able to change as a pitcher since then. I mean, look, like I said, he's the breakout pitcher of the year so far because he's got a 1.1 ERA with 57 strikeouts and 41 innings between High A Greenville and Double A Portland. So, despite pitching on that incredible LSU staff right there with Cade Anderson, he slipped a bit in the draft, I would say, because of the quality of the fastball, and then absolutely showed out for the world in the spring breakout game back in March. We get into that a little bit, but we start off talking about Anthony Eyanson a year ago on the mound for LSU with the national title on the line.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Well, Anthony, one big reason why I wanted to come out here to Reading this week to talk to you was because we are now in college baseball season, Omaha season, and you are somebody who has a unique perspective on that. So when I say just the word Omaha, what floods to your mind?
I automatically think about last year, just the whole baseball team playing for LSU, just being able to win, in Omaha, win the national championship was just so special. It just brings back so many memories.
And, what is the first memory that comes back to mind? Because, one thing I haven't said yet, you were the starting pitcher in Game 2 against Coastal. That's a big game. Like, very few people can say they have pitched with a national championship on the line. What comes to mind when you think about that start specifically?
Yeah, I honestly think about Chase Shores throwing the last pitch, double play from fielding it. Danny flips it to Milam. He comes across the bag and throws it, and we win. That's the core memory. Obviously, us rushing the field and dogpiling is so special. But I'm just so blessed to be able to start that game. That was really cool for me.
What is it like prepping for that type of game? I mean, I know everybody wants to say it's just like any other, but it is in a special setting. It's against another really good team with hardware on the line. So what was going into the prep for that one?
Yeah, I remember just being so amped up, having so much energy and adrenaline. Literally what you dream of is that game. So you're just very excited. I kind of had to dial it back a little bit because I didn't want to be, way too aggressive and get out of my plan. But ultimately just being myself, understanding, the work has brought us to that moment, and it's not something that's going to surprise us.
Yeah, and you say being amped up. I was watching that first at-bat against Caden Bodine. Well, obviously, he's another really good prospect now in the AL East with the Rays. You threw him a first-pitch breaking ball. I'd imagine everybody would be amped up and wanting to throw 96 like you did in that first inning. Just take me through going through that first at-bat and how much it may have calmed you down knowing you have the breaking stuff.
Yeah, I just remember game planning with the coaches. We had a feeling that he wasn't going to be sitting on a first pitch breaker.
Sure.
So it was more so just me setting the tone with that pitch. Just kind of, dialing it down, being myself. Obviously, if I would have thrown a fastball, it would have been ultra aggressive. But just understanding, the way that I operate, kind of pitch backwards to guys and just taking that initiative there.
Yeah, how much did you feel like just being yourself in that? Because I think even in that outing, you threw more sliders than you did fastballs, which makes sense for how good your slider was. But was that a big part of the approach, was leaning on what made you so good last year?
Yeah, for sure. I knew that I didn't have to really change anything, operate against that lineup. It was more so just, how efficient I can be with every at-bat and getting to 2 strikes. But definitely wanted to have that slider mixed in there, mixing it with the fastball and the curveball down. That was my game plan going into that one.
Yeah, and you said you wanted to not be so amped up. So what did you do to quiet that down or calm yourself during the day leading up to that?
Yeah, just took the day very slow, limited the time I spent on my phone. Just kind of had a clear mind, listen to some music, just getting prepared, getting ready. Just looking through my camera roll of, all the memories that I've had with pictures of, the regionals, super regionals, and even just throughout the season. Just really understanding and trying to be where my feet are at.
Yeah, I mean, you transferred from UC San Diego basically for that moment. How much was that in your mind of knowing I came to Baton Rouge for games like this?
Yeah, literally. I remember putting on my headband in the dugout right before I went out to go to the bullpen for the final game, and just like all my baseball memories kind of flushed me at once, from being a kid playing Little League T-ball to literally starting that game. That's probably the biggest game that I pitched in so far. So it was just a full circle moment. I just wanted to be myself and just enjoy it.
How much do you still carry that experience in your back pocket? You know, when you were making your season debut this year or your debut at AA, I mean, how much do you lean on that?
Oh, I lean on it a bunch. Being able to operate, in that environment in front of those fans, with it all on the line is like, as far as my career right now, that's the biggest game I would have ever played in, and to have the results that I did, it just gives me all the reason to go out there and be confident.
You said you were listening to music. What is the Anthony Calm Down playlist like?
A good amount of jazz in there. I like some Kenny G.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Also like some like slow R&B, like 90s, 2000s, even like Erykah Badu. Just kind of like slowing down, just letting the environment kind of settle, and just when I'm on the mound is when I'll be ultra competitive.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people are listening to pump up music. You're more about bringing the heart rate down, it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. I would say until I get to the locker room and I'm putting on my jersey, then I'll kind of switch it up. Turn on some rap music, just trying to get excited. Some loud beats just to get me going and get me amped up.
Yeah, and obviously so much has happened in a year for you getting drafted. How are you a different pitcher today than you were on that day?
Yeah, I would say I definitely just have a lot more options. Obviously, throwing a cutter and involving the splitter more, it gives me, real 5-pitch mix. I feel like college I was more 3-pitch with fastball, curveball, slider, sprinkling the splitter a little bit, but just changing the shape on the fastball as well, and just being able to continue to evolve with what pitches I'm throwing and what counts to what hitters.
Yeah, and when you talk about that fastball, I think that's the thing that's gotten people talking most in your start to pro ball, adding the velocity. What did you do in the offseason to do that? Because I think a lot of people would love to add 2-3 miles an hour to a fastball. It's a lot harder than that.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it was just a lot more throwing. I threw a very limited amount at LSU, and then obviously the transition to the Red Sox, it was just a lot more throwing of high-intent throwing a lot more often, training that with good, weight room, nutrition, training. I feel like I was just able to elevate the floor for me, which was very cool.
Was that something they were giving to you? Were you in Fort Myers for much of the offseason? How did that work?
Yeah, I was in Fort Myers for pretty much the whole offseason until we got shipped out for affiliate ball, but yeah, I was just there training, a lot of weight training, literally a lot of pull downs, plyo work, weighted balls, just throwing, just a lot high effort throwing. I feel like I benefited very well from that.
At what point did it feel like, oh, my velo really is ticking up?
Yeah, I would obviously say the spring breakout game. There was some
I was going to bring that up.
Some live at-bats where I was throwing like 95 to 98, and it didn't feel like I was like trying that hard to, get to like 94s and 95s. And then when I was trying harder, like 97 and 98, that's when I started to notice the difference in velocity.
Yeah, I mean, I was at that breakout game in Sarasota against the Orioles, and you could sense everybody just shoot up in their chairs, especially the scouts, like seeing you hit triple digits. What was that moment like for you? Were you turning around watching the scoreboard? Did you find out later? Like, how did you react to how the ball was coming out?
Yeah, I believe it was a 2-strike count, and I shook an off-speed to a fastball, and I was like, this is my chance to hit 100. Like, I'm going to try as hard as I can, throw this ball as hard as I can. I threw it, he fouled it off, and I heard the dugout, like, kind of like clapping, like, yeah, like cheering. And I catch the ball from the umpire. I'm walking back to the mound, and I see it on the board. It said 100. I was like, I hope that's real. Hope that's a real 100.
Was that the first time in your life that you had gotten triple digits?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I was surprised, honestly.
And the Red Sox give out shirts for the 100 Club or something like that?
Yes.
So what is that shirt like, and is there a ceremony that comes with it?
No, they just kind of hung it in my locker for me. It's a Fuego T-shirt for the guys that have hit 100. But it was really cool to have. I look at it sometimes, and I'm just like, man, that was cool. I want to do that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how do you maintain, not necessarily triple digits deep into June, but like when you are starting from that mark, you are now having to pitch into August and September in ways you've never had before. How do you balance that of trying to stay healthy for a full year?
Yeah, I obviously prioritize, staying healthy and being able to maintain, my health overall, just to be able to make those starts. Just understanding there's going to be ebbs and flows and ups and downs with, the whole season with how long it is. obviously we're human and things are going to happen, things are going to change, your body's going to feel, the course of the season. But just staying true, staying committed to, my routine and preparation and just maintaining health overall.
And you mentioned adding the cutter and the splitter, or you already had the splitter, but incorporating it more. Was that something the Red Sox took to you, or especially with the cutter, because you are so breaking ball heavy? Tell me about the development of that pitch and how it's come along.
Yeah, the splitter is something I've always had. It was more so just me throwing it more, just being more competitive, around the zone with it, and I've found some strides with that as well. But yeah, the cutter just giving hitters a different look that's more firm, along with the fastball, and then that'll just help them get off of the slider and the curveball even more when I do take the initiative to throw those.
Do you think of the cutter as a fastball? Because I think it's like categorized as a fastball, but it's a little bit slower. It's can be a bridge pitch between your slider. How do you view it?
Yeah, I definitely view it as a pitch that I'm trying to throw fast, trying to throw in the zone, just staying competitive with it. I still need to keep throwing it more just to keep on learning and seeing, what feedback I'm going to get from the hitters. But, yeah, I definitely think of it as just, a moving fastball, if you will.
And going back to that slider, when did you realize you had a good one, and what is it about that pitch that you feel like works so well for you?
Yeah, I think the vertical depth is the separator for me with the slider. I learned it my sophomore year in college. I was trying to throw like a sweeper because I wanted to see it move from right to left because that was cool. That's cool to see. And I threw one and it went from up to down, and I was like, "Coach, this can't be right."
It's supposed to slide. It's not supposed to drop.
It's not supposed to drop. And he's like, "Trust me, like that's good. Just keep throwing it." So I just stayed with it and got a lot of good results from lefties and righties on the pitch.
So once you realized that, were there any sliders you were looking towards of like, oh, this is what mine can be like ones in the major leagues or anything like that?
Yeah, I started to look at like Jacob deGrom throw his gyro slider, just the release of his hand staying, through the ball, and that was one guy that I studied for the slider a little bit, and just continue to try to throw it with fastball intent, and ever since then I've just been kind of throwing it as the same as I have been.
Yeah, and how do you feel like the increased fastball velo sets up those other two pitches? Because even in that breakout game, I think all three of your strikeouts were on the curve.
Yes.
So like how does that set up everything else?
Yeah, I feel like it's just easier to be more competitive with throwing the ball in the zone and in the zone that you intend to throw it in. Obviously the velocity for that pitch too has gone up. I think in that game it was like 82 to 83 maybe. So just understanding like you have to be on time for the fastball, the slider, which is in between, and then the curveball as well. It's really tough for hitters to cover those three planes, so just kind of try to fill it in the zone.
And you've been here at AA for a few weeks now. What have you realized about this level? And especially being in Portland, you're not that far away from Boston.
Yeah, I've just, from my experience so far, the hitters are way more disciplined. They're better. They're more selective, stay to their approach more, which is cool. It's going to challenge you as a pitcher to, execute your pitch more often and, have to have good sequences to get guys out more than once.
I feel like last night might have been one of those learning moments for you. When you have an outing like that, how much are you studying the tape immediately? Or are you waiting a while? Like, are you jotting stuff down? How does that work?
Yeah, I look at the tape, last night a little bit, and then this morning in some meetings that we have. Just trying to take the good with the bad, just understand it's a process, and just trying to have a clear mind, move past it. Obviously was not close to anywhere near my standards that I have for myself, but understanding those outings are going to happen, just staying committed and staying true to yourself is most important.
Yeah, and like I said, Portland is so close to Boston, but also AA is so close to the major leagues. How close do you feel right now?
Yeah, that's tough. I don't really think about that at all. I don't think like how close am I to getting to the big leagues. I just think about what can I do to control and what can I do to be the pitcher that I envision in my brain, and that's just dominating my routine week in and week out. And I'll leave that to Boston to control. Whatever they think is right for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having gone through that atmosphere at LSU, I mean, it's just the SEC in general. There's so many of those parks are basically major league quality with major league quality fans. How do you feel like that set you up for what could be, when you do get the call to Boston?
Yeah, I feel like it definitely gave me some, experience just on how to stay calm, how to stay collected, how to operate when there's a bunch of people screaming at you at home and even on the road. Just being able to, keep the main thing, and that's just execution at the end of the day on the mound.
What was the toughest environment you had to pitch in?
That's a good one. Toughest environment. I would say Texas A&M was pretty tough. Texas was as well, and Auburn. Those are my top three, just from what I remember. They had some good fans, good showings, and good competition as well.
Yeah, and are you somebody who allows yourself to, like, envision what a major league debut would be like? Not necessarily at Fenway, but anywhere, like what you would go through that day?
Yeah, for sure. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about that every single day. Just, that MLB debut. I just try to, I think about that, and I think about today, and I think about what I can do in my routine to put me in the best position to succeed on that day. So I think about it long term, and just understanding that, I have to treat every day like it's that day, honestly.
And just keep Kenny G playlist handy just for whenever.
Absolutely. Keep some Songbird and some Loving You ready for me in the playlist.
All right, great. That's all I had for you. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Best of luck.
Well, huge thanks to Anthony Eyanson for joining the show. And that interview took place in a ballpark that is near and dear to the hearts of all three of us. And anybody who has ever been there would probably say the same. And that is at the home of the Reading Fightin' Phils baseball town in Reading, Pennsylvania. Sam, was that your first Reading experience, getting a chance to go check out baseball town this time?
So technically yes and technically no.
Okay.
The technically no is that, as listeners to this podcast might remember, Ben, Kelsey Hennigan, and I drove from New York City to Dyersville, Iowa, a few years ago for the Field of Dreams game. We hit up various baseball stops along the way, and we stopped in Reading because Ben has a very strong connection to Reading. It was along the way for us anyways. But at the same time, this was around re-rank season for us at MLB Pipeline. I had a Blue Jays call that happened in the back of the car. So while Kelsey and Ben were going in, getting a brief tour of First Energy Stadium and checking in with the good folks at the front office for the Reading Fightin' Phils, I was sweating it out in the back seat, talking Blue Jays prospects and trying to figure out who gets bumped up to 15, who gets moved off the list, who should be their top prospects, et cetera, et cetera. Very productive call, very helpful to that specific source. But I didn't actually get to explore much. By the time I was done, they were back in. We had to hit the road again. So, as I was saying at the beginning of the show, like I was trying to look around this week just to get out to a game, see a series that would have some interesting discussions, and we'll have another interview from my visit next week. I talked to Dante Nori, Tyler, who you might remember as a WBC hero for Team Italy in the spring. We get into that a lot. So I'll save that for next week. Consider that a tease. But also, like, it was just a nice opportunity to experience First Energy Stadium, having never, even if I had gone into that and gotten a tour, it wouldn't have been for a game.
Yeah.
We were just passing through in the morning. So getting to see this place for a game, and it was, Wednesday night, middle of the week, it was Seinfeld night.
Oh,
so Jay Peterman was there.
Amazing.
Yeah. Jay Peterman, John O'Hurley, who some of you might know from the Dog Show, and also he hosted Family Feud for a while, which I forgot until they introduced him. But he was introduced as Jay Peterman throughout the first pitch. They had some giveaways there. I think if you got a certain ticket package, you could get George in a puffy coat, the Gore-Tex coat.
As a bobblehead?
As a bobblehead. Yeah, sweet. Sorry. You were not getting a life-size George Costanza.
You get your very own Jason Alexander.
Yeah. Yes, as a bobblehead. You could also just purchase it from the team store. So other fans could get in on that. But it was Seinfeld night. So it was a pretty good crowd. But it was 6,772 for a Wednesday night in early June.
That's Reading,
like
man.
You were saying
those fans are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's still a school night for that area. I did not ask around. But it was a lively crowd. Everybody was into
That's
it. John O'Hurley even mentioned, and I wonder how much of this was based on timing for him. It was Reading versus Portland, which is how we got Anthony Eyanson, a Red Sox prospect, on the show. And he said, I have to say this, and then you're going to boo me. And he was kind of inviting it. I am a diehard Red Sox fan. I know he's from New England. I think he's from Massachusetts originally.
Okay.
And then he just walked off, and he's just like waving to everybody as they're booing. It was Philly being Philly. It was Massachusetts being Massachusetts. So that worked out really well. But yeah, just a joyous evening at the ballpark. It was raining for much of the afternoon. They had to pull the tarp. Game started at 7:15, so just about 15 minutes late. Reading ended up winning that game at home, so everybody went home happy. 6-4 home runs by Alex Pinellas and Caleb Ricketts. Caleb Ricketts, who was off to an incredible week. He actually got sent down from AAA Lehigh Valley to AA Reading. They're kind of hoping to jumpstart his offense, it seems like. And I believe he has 3 home runs in his first 2 games back with the Fighting Phils. So that was certainly there. Franklin Arias, who we've talked about a ton on this show about in the first few months, just his power jump and how much he's now pretty firmly a top 10 overall prospect in the game. Went 2 for 4 with a walk from the leadoff spot for Portland. You can just tell his defensive actions. And I was talking to our good friend Emma Tiedemann about this before the game. Like, he had an error this week and she was shocked. Like, his hands are tremendous. His range is tremendous at shortstop. He's just so sure gloved, I guess is the way I would put it. He's just such a smooth defender out there that if, even in the course of a long season, he makes a mistake, it comes as a surprise to those who see him the most. And even a couple of the hits he had were like they were liners, like right at the infielders.
Yeah.
There's one to short, there's one to third. So even if he's not hitting home runs, which he's done a lot so far this season, he's still making quality contact. You can kind of tell so much of this Portland offense, even defense, gravitates around him and just moves around him. It would not shock me if he's one of those perfect examples of, like, he goes to the Futures game in Philly and he brings everything with him and he goes from Portland to Worcester. Like, that's just moving day for Franklin Arias. Now, he could get promoted before then. That is very possible. Emma was even saying, like, on road trips, she makes sure he's on the bus. Just to be like, is this how I find out you got promoted?
Because
you're no longer on the
one
bus
day.
with us. Not that anybody wants him to be held down for too long, but the people in Portland know that he is the big name now in the Red Sox system, right there with Anthony Eyanson. So getting those 2 guys as a 1-2 punch is a big deal for the folks in Maine. But it feels like he's going to get challenged here in AAA ball sooner rather than later. And I mentioned the Futures game being an opportunity that's only a month away. So it could happen before then. It might not. We'll see how things go. If maybe he runs a little bit cold before then, but he really did look like the total package. And just my one game look at him.
That is very cool. If you're near, or you're going to be passing through Pennsylvania, you're going to be near Reading, that's like an all-time minor league baseball place. That's a pilgrimage that you should make. It's just the ballpark is incredible. They do such a great job accentuating the features of, it's a classic old American ballpark. It was built, I think, in the early 50s, late 40s maybe, and it feels brand new when you walk in. I haven't been there in quite some time, but that was one of my favorite places on the minor league baseball map. If you ever get a chance to go to Baseball Town and catch a Reading Fighting Phils game, be sure to do it. It is one of the coolest places in minor league baseball. So let's go from the Phillies system, Sam, over to the Chicago White Sox, where the Southsiders are in first place in the American League Central for the first time in 4 years. And they've got a new exciting talent up at the big league level who became the 5th player in Major League history to hit a walk-off homer in his debut, and that's Braden Montgomery.
Yeah, Braden Montgomery, who on our list right now is the number 2 White Sox prospect and number 21 overall in baseball. Really strong second full season for him. People might remember he was one of the guys acquired in the Garrett Crochet deal. And all 4 of those players, by the way, who the White Sox got from the Red Sox in that blockbuster deal, have made the major leagues now. I mean, that feels pretty rare, right? Where like all 4 guys, and you can pick some nits here in terms of like Wickelman Gonzalez, I believe is currently injured, had some brief time before that. Kyle Teal is also injured. Chase Mydroth has like an outside shot at being the AL second baseman because there aren't that many good AL second basemen anymore, or at least currently AL second baseman for the All-Star game, I should say. So it's worked out pretty good for the White Sox, but Braden Montgomery, you could certainly argue, was the main centerpiece of that trade. About a year and a half ago, he was the 12th overall pick by the Red Sox in the 2024 draft. People also might remember the visual of him at the draft in the stockyards in Fort Worth, which is where they held the first round of the draft that year, or day 1 of the draft anyways.
I was just
He had
there
a
last
broken
week.
ankle.
Yeah, right.
He had a broken right ankle and was wheeling himself around the event and, putting on the Red Sox jersey, talking about like, oh, it's so exciting to go to the Red Sox here. They trade him away a few months later. The trade Turner rule is no longer in effect.
Yeah.
So you can trade draft picks the following offseason. You don't have to wait a full year like you used to. But I think he was the big get because I said this the other day to somebody else. When the Red Sox drafted him, he felt like the stereotypical power hitting right fielder. As he got called up this week, what is his profile? It remains the stereotypical power hitting right fielder. Now, he's gotten a lot of time in center field. And, that's one thing that surprised me a little bit about him getting called up because the White Sox needed the most help in right. And I thought maybe he would get a little bit more run there before they did it. But they call him up, they start him in right field. But just to run through his numbers here real quick. At AA and AAA before the promotion, 314 batting average, 422 on base, 548 slug, 10 homers, 5 stolen bases. But in his last 10 games for AAA Charlotte, he batted 474 with a 580 on base and slugged 711, and he had more walks than strikeouts. In his brief time with Charlotte, he could really hit the fastball. He was slugging 893 against them. He only whiffed on 11.5% of his swings against pitches that were above 95 miles an hour. The biggest question for me was how is he going to hit the soft stuff? And also, how is he going to be as a right-handed hitter? That was kind of the knock against him coming out of college was he is a switch hitter, but he was much stronger from the left side to the point where a lot of scouts thought just hit lefty full time, like stop trying to hit from the right-hand side. Then last year, the splits actually evened out pretty well, and that's why we felt strongly and ranked him so highly. Is it seemed like, okay, things were evening out. Then it went backwards this year again. As a right-handed hitter, he was batting 220 with a 341 slugging percentage and a 681 OPS as a righty. Compared to that to the lefty, where he hit 9 of his 10 homers and was slugging 598 with a 337 average. All that to say, and I'll go back to my point about like, I thought he would do really well against the fastball, struggle against the softer stuff. What is he homer on in that first game against the Braves? That walk-off homer, very memorable sight on the south side. It's a changeup from Raciel Iglesias. And it's the opposite way, which kind of tells me that he was reading and reacting. He was not expecting the changeup. He was probably sitting heater, realized that wasn't coming. Is like, oh, this is still catching a lot of the plate, and just smacked it. And it just kept going and going and going and going, beyond the left field wall. And I love that moment, not just because of how rare it is and how cool that must be. Like, we talk to so many players, and one of my favorite questions, I'm sure people will catch on to this, is do you envision what your major league debut will be like? Do you allow yourself to do that? And some of them will be honest with me and say yes, and this is how I think it's going to go. And some will be like, oh, I try to keep it out of my mind. Like, it'll be here when it gets here. I'm sure all of them, in their heart of hearts, were like, yeah, I'm going to show up and I'm going to hit a walk-off homer and everybody's going to love me and it's going to go great. And there have been some Braden Montgomery quotes of like, hey, the MLB Social team has this. So go check out MLB Social of, what kind of major leaguer are you going to be? And he's like, oh, you're going to have to pay attention. Like, I'm going to do some stuff to change the game.
That's pretty cool.
Make sure you watch me play.
That's pretty cool.
And he's saying it with a smile on his face. He's not saying it like,
yeah, he's not cocky. He's just, yeah.
It's confident. That's always that tricky line, right? Confidence versus cocky.
Yeah.
And the fact that he did that and just the edits that have come out of that are so cool.
That's awesome.
And to your point earlier, Tyler, in terms of like the White Sox are now in first place in the AL Central. When he got called up, they were only a game and a half behind the Guardians, and they were in place to win the second AL wild card. One thing I think the White Sox, maybe this is luck, maybe this is planning. I'm sure they would tell you it's planning. They keep finding the right guys to fill certain holes, right? Like you bring up Sam Antonacci, guy who's normally been an infielder, pretty strong bat. We have some questions about the slug. That's why we never put him on the top 100. And he's not really that good of a defensive left fielder. But he's holding it down. He's making it work. Like he's getting on base. He's doing all that other stuff. You put him in left field, it feels a little bit like a round peg in a square hole, but like it's fitting somehow. Colson Montgomery taking a step. Munetaka Murakami, like people thought that guy was going to strike out a lot, and he has. He's going to whiff a lot. But the power is absolutely playing in a way that everybody else got scared of. I don't want to say everybody else, but most other teams got scared away from. And now the White Sox are reaping the benefits, and it's all kind of coming together. And then you looked at their outfield right now, and you're like, well, the biggest holes in right field Braden Montgomery's getting hot at the right time. This is the time to call him up when he has confidence, when he has momentum. The arm is certainly going to play in right. Like that's not an issue. And they have Tristan Peters, who's like been a really good center fielder for them. So he can cover some ground and take over for Antonacci in left, or at least cover the ground that Antonacci's not getting to. And then you basically have a second center fielder in right. That's pretty good. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the White Sox would necessarily be my pick to win the AL Central going the rest of the way, but they are certainly beating expectations. And it's tough to sit here and be like, okay, I don't think they're going to be good because they keep proving everybody wrong this year, thanks to these young pieces.
They have some divine intercession.
And that, you know what? We can't rule it out.
You can't rule it out at this stage. They haven't been in first place in, it feels like 1,000 years. And
the Nova Knicks are one game away from a championship too. There's something
exactly. There's something going on. I was surprised to see that it was only 4 years ago that the White Sox were last in first place. Now, granted, obviously it didn't last for extremely long, but it just feels like that franchise has been wandering in the dark for so long. And the fact that they've got not only a team that is, making it work right now, and they're winning some games, and they're just like a fun team as well. Like they got a lot of really fun talent to watch, and that's pretty cool for White Sox fans to not be like, all right, well, sure, this team they're doing fine, but eventually they're gonna regress to being just, what we know the White Sox to be. Like they got some fun talent right now. They are also the only team in the American League Central that has a positive run differential, and they are one of just 5 teams in the American League that can claim that. In one of the weirdest baseball being baseball things ever, the New York Yankees have a run differential that is tied for second best in Major League. Check that, third best in Major League Baseball of plus 103, and they are tied for first place with the Tampa Bay Rays, who are plus 12. Baseball's so weird, and I love it so much. All right, Sam, final point for our on-field chatter this week. Some promotions. Eli Willits and Devin Fitzgerald moving up the high A ranks.
Yeah, this one, I don't want to say it surprised me. Devin Fitzgerald is moving up to Double A, so he's going from high A to Double A, just to say that from the off. But the Nationals this year have been one of the more aggressive teams in terms of moving their prospects, and they kind of signaled that to us. I wrote about this week in the MLB Pipeline newsletter. When Ronnie Cruz went from Single A Fredericksburg to High A Wilmington after, I believe, only 10 games, part of that was the fact that the Nationals had been singing his praises all spring, and Eli Willits was going to be the primary shortstop. They wanted to send him to a place where Cruz could be a primary shortstop. But the fact that he was the one they pushed was kind of a signal. And the Nationals are not in a place right now where they need to be aggressively pushing their prospects. Like, they're not trying to increase the value. There have been whispers about some teams do that, right? Like, you promote your prospects aggressively because then they look better in trade models if you are, a 19-year-old at Double A. I'm not saying all teams do this, and I'm not saying it's a primary reason for some teams, but it doesn't hurt. It's just a fact of the matter that if you are a model-based team and you're looking at trades, it's good to acquire young players who are about, much younger than their certain level. But the Nationals don't need to do that. They're not trading away prospects, but they want these guys iron to sharpen iron. So they do that early with Ronnie Cruz, and then you sit here and you watch how Eli Willits has done recently. First overall pick last year, just 18 years old. He's going to be 18 all season long. He was hitting 300, 418, 500 in 47 games with Fredericksburg, 6 homers, 29 stolen bases. The defense continued to at least look above average, if not plus. And he's a switch hitter. The power has been there, I think, a little bit better than people were expecting. I think people thought like maybe he'll slug 410, 420, and you keep saying like, oh, the power will come eventually. It'll come eventually. Well, it's come pretty nicely early on for Eli Willits. So now, the Nationals decide to send him up a level. Well, if they're doing that, and that's another infield logjam at High A Wilmington. And Devin Fitzgerald, who we've talked about in the past, and somebody who's fought his way onto the top 100, he's the guy to go to Harrisburg. But that happens during a stretch in which I believe he was 0 for his last 23. Like, Devin Fitzgerald was stuck. Struggling. But one thing I will say about Devin Fitzgerald, the numbers are still good. Like, he had a 903 OPS in Wilmington. And the power has been there much better than a lot of people expected. 12 homers in 51 games. Wilmington also an extreme pitcher's park. It's very difficult to hit the ball out there. Um, Partly because it's like right near, I think it's right near a river, and also there's like a highway in the background. Like it's just so much easier for the wind to blow in.
Yeah, the wind's always
So,
blowing in there.
yeah, so it's a difficult place to hit homers. But Devin Fitzgerald went through a run where he hit, I want to say, like 9 homers in 10 games, just absolutely went off. And everybody I talked to in the Nats organization, Devin Fitzgerald is somebody they acquired from the Rangers in the offseason in the Mackenzie Gore blockbuster. And, this is a new look Nationals front office, but their connections go way back from Red Sox, Pirates, they brought various people over. But Devin Fitzgerald's dad is the head coach at Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. So he had coached Roman Anthony. He's been on the show. We went through
Yeah.
this on the show.
Yeah.
Devin Fitzgerald, Jesus Luzardo, Kobe Mayo, keep going down the line. Like a lot of big players have come out of that program. And he's the prototypical coach's son, right? Like he's process over results. If you're doing the right processes, it's going to translate. And I think that's one thing. They believe in the processes that he has in place. He's never going to get too high or get too low. And also, he's somebody who can handle an aggressive assignment. Even coming into this year, he only had 10 games of single A ball. Like last year, he was mostly in the Arizona Complex League in the Rangers system, and then had a shoulder injury, left shoulder injury. Again, go back to and listen to that. We talk a little bit about it and coming back from that. So he only had 10 games at single A, but they place him at high A anyways because they believe he can tackle that level. I think they feel the same way about him at Harrisburg. Now, he's started 0 for 8 with 3 strikeouts, very small sample size. Eli Willits, on the other hand, had a 2-homer game in his second game with Wilmington, playing in the very homer-friendly, we'll say, Greensboro. But still, like the fact that, again, Eli Willits, guy who had a lot of questions about his power, is homering twice in his second high A game. The Nationals are pressing a lot of the right buttons right now in terms of knowing when to press guys, when to ease off, who to hold back on, when to promote them, when to get aggressive. And there are a lot of up arrows in this organization right now. I mean, we have 6 top 100 prospects for them right now. And Harry Ford started out our year in the top 100 as Sims dropped off. Gavin Feen, another guy from that Mackenzie Gore deal, has dealt with some injuries early on, and he was in our top 100. We ended up taking him off. Maybe he forces his way back on. It seems like he's heating up a bit again. So, if you're a Nats fan and a lot of good is happening at the major league level, I think a lot even better is happening at the minor league level. And all you have to do is watch Eli Willits and how professional he looks and how professional he continues to look at high A, where I will reiterate, he is the first 18-year-old to appear at high A this season. That's really, really special what's going on in that system right now.
That's pretty amazing stuff. You can, of course, as always, catch all of Sam's content at MLB.com. And coming up, we'll get set to say goodbye on this week's episode of the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. Getting set to put the wraps on this week's episode of the show before the show. And before we do, of course, it is time for this week's edition of Name That Dude, in which one of us thinks of a dude from baseball years past and the other two ordinarily guess. But this week, Sam and Ben have a code dude who they were talking about last week. And I'm going to be the lone guesser this week, I believe. Is that right, Sam?
Yes, you are. Because this is one of those situations where Ben and I were just sitting, in our desks right next to each other, just remembering a dude. And we're like, you know what? This is a guy who should be on the show. Okay. But now we've discussed it amongst ourselves. So how is that going to work? And we're like, you know what? We're just going to team up on this one.
Gang up on Tyler.
Gang up on Tyler, as we so often do.
All right.
But now in game form.
Let's do it.
To discuss this dude. I think there's a good chance he'll get this dude.
Okay.
He's definitely within our, the Venn diagram of our eras.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
This guy's kind of square right in the middle.
Okay.
He played longer than I think either of us had realized. He was in the game a long time. But he signed as a free agent with the San Diego Padres out of Puerto Rico as a teenager.
Okay.
And then enjoyed a methodical climb through the Padres system, which is a very different Padres system than we see today. Began in 1983 at the age of 18, a full season with the Miami Marlins. It's kind of forgotten,
Yeah.
but there were a variety of minor league teams named the Miami Marlins prior to the major league Miami Marlins arriving in 1993, including a Miami Marlins team that Satchel Paige pitched for back in
Yeah.
the day.
That was a legendary franchise back then.
Yeah. So this is the 1983 Florida State League Miami Marlins. That's where he made his debut. 1984 went up to a team that holds the distinction now and probably forever as being the only team in the California League that was not based in the state of California. That would be the Reno Silver Sox.
Silver Sox, yeah.
Yeah, and today's Reno Aces have regular like throwback Thursdays where they play as the Silver Sox.
Baseball Reference says it's the Reno Padres.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Boo, parent club
Yeah,
name.
not as fun as the Silver Sox. We can still remember the Silver Sox fondly,
You're right.
as we should.
I guess there were some times that Reno had a Cal League team and they weren't named the Silver Sox. The Silver Sox was a name that had a lot, was very sporadic.
Someday, just as an
I
aside,
still call them the Silver Sox.
can we
Your
do-
shirt says I still call them the
I still
Silver
call them the
Sox.
Silver Sox. Can we do a story someday on how many different shades of color have preceded socks for minor league baseball teams? Because there have been a bajillion: blue socks, gold socks, red socks, green socks, black socks, silver socks. Like I don't think white socks, obviously. I don't think that there are many colors that have been left out. Anyway,
No, that's a good one. That
neither here nor there.
That feels like something from Backyard Baseball. When
Yeah.
you got to name your team, and it was
Yeah.
just like the orange watermelons or whatever, melon heads.
You can have the lavender socks. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. All right, continue.
Okay, so picking up, this guy went up a level per year, pretty interestingly. So the Reno Padres in 1984, we pick it back up in 1985 with the Beaumont Golden Gators.
Yeah, and I just looked them up. This is just Wikipedia because this is not a team I'm very familiar with.
Beaumont, Texas.
A Texas League team, yes, that played in Beaumont, Texas, on the campus of Lamar University.
Huh.
And they were only a team between 1983 and 1986. And then, because everything is connected, we talked about Wichita having a Texas League team previous in this episode. The Beaumont Golden Gators moved to Wichita and became the Wichita Pilots for the 1987 season. And then they became the Wichita Wranglers and played in Wichita all the way through, 2007, before moving to Springdale, Arkansas, and becoming today's Northwest Arkansas Naturals.
Just
And how
to
about
tie
this?
this all together, the person who is running the ship, so to speak, for a turbo tub, would you call them a pilot? Because I feel like Wichita could very easily do a throwback night now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because
I'll
like a
go with that.
steamship, that was a pilot, right? If you were on a steamboat in the Mississippi River, that was a pilot.
But the layers get deeper here, Tyler, because
Okay.
before Beaumont existed, before the Beaumont Golden Gators existed, they were the Amarillo Gold Sox.
Gold Sox. Oh, maybe that's why they kept gold in the name. Maybe they just like brought the uniforms over. We see that throughout sports history. That would have been back in an era still where it was like, all right, well, we have to reuse these uniforms. They're yellow all over, so we might as well just use gold again.
It's very possible.
Interesting.
Very possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was the previous AA affiliated minor league team that Amarillo had before the Sod Poodles
Yeah.
arrived in 2019. And man, we're on tangents, but like I'm just on the Wikipedia page for the Beaumont Golden Gators. After a brief synopsis of the team's 4 years, the only other section of the Wikipedia is Joey Cora stabbing.
What?
Yeah, Beaumont Golden Gator Joey Cora was stabbed after a game in San Antonio. 2 men called his name and then assaulted him. He was stabbed once in the stomach and once
Holy
in the arm. He
cow.
was quickly rushed to the hospital and later made a full recovery. After spending 6 weeks on the disabled list, a man named Jose Puente was caught at the scene and later charged with attempted murder. No motive was ever
Jeez.
given for the crime. So that's a sordid chapter in the brief history of the
Wow.
Beaumont Golden
Beaumont
Gators, which was
Golden
also
Gators.
the third San Diego Padres locale that this dude played out in 1985, and then he went up another level. Sam, he went right on up.
He went right on up. So interesting. I wonder how many people in minor league baseball history have played for both Reno and Las Vegas, because that's what this dude did. Also, Tyler, in case you were worried about Ben giving it away, the dude is not Joey Cora.
Okay. That would have been a
Scratch him off the list then.
real self-sabotage there for name that dude. You just named
Yeah.
the dude while naming that dude.
So this dude went to the Las Vegas Stars in 1986. His fourth team in as many years. It was his age 21 season, so reaching AAA at that young age is pretty good indeed. He also debuted with the Padres in 1986, and that's pretty much it for his minor league career. It seems like there's some occasional rehab appearances here and there. He gets in 6 games with Las Vegas in 1990. He gets in 4 games with Las Vegas in 1992. He is playing with the Padres from 1986 to 1992. Then 93 goes to the Florida Marlins. He's also with the Florida Marlins in 94, 95 with the Cincinnati Reds, 96 with the Phillies, 97 with the Blue Jays. A few rehab appearances there with Syracuse and Dunedin. 98 with the Blue Jays, 99 with the Cubs, 2000 with the Reds, 2001, 2002, and 2003 with the Giants, 2004 with the Royals, and then 2005 with the Pirates, but also some time in the Mets system with Norfolk and St. Lucie.
Yeah,
and
his last major league games were with the Pirates in 2005, but he was in the Mets system in 2005 as well.
Okay.
Never played for the Mets themselves at the age of 40. So this is a guy whose career started in the early 80s as a teenager, and he played all the way through 2005. Do you have any guesses before we even say?
I do.
Give more hints
so
here.
I'm thinking about one guy. When you said the Giants, I remember a guy from that era who I also remember with the Marlins. And there are a lot of additional steps in there. And now, like thinking about it, I think he debuted with the Padres. Is this guy Benito Santiago?
You are correct, Tyler.
Amazing. I love that guy. Benito Santiago is a fun player. I also, so how many big league seasons did he play then?
Officially 20 years in the bigs.
20 years. I know he was a rookie of the year at one time. And had some all-star appearances, I believe. I think even like late in his career. Didn't he make a late all-star appearance with the Giants?
He had 5 all-star appearances, or 5 all-star teams, we should say. I don't know if he appeared in every one of those games, but let's see. His latest all-star appearance was in 2002 with the Giants. His age 37 season. He also finished
age 37
20th
season
in NL MVP voting that year.
Wow.
Wow.
Benito Santiago, good pull.
Yeah, well, speaking of all-star games, the reason he came up was Sam and I were talking in the office, and was talking about Philadelphia hosting the All-Star game this year, and I mentioned how 30 years ago the last time that Philadelphia had an All-Star game, I did not go to the game, but I went to a fan fest, and they had this cool thing where you could get in a little makeshift broadcast booth and choose an array of Phillies highlights to be the announcer over, and then you get a VHS cassette with your call. And I did it twice because I loved that premise so much. But one of them was Benito Santiago hitting a grand slam off Greg Maddux as a member of the Phillies just earlier that year. So not some necessarily huge iconic moment, but it was something fresh, a recent Phillies highlight. And somewhere in one of my closets or cabinets is a VHS cassette of me calling Benito Santiago hitting a home run off Greg Maddux in 1996, the same year that the Phillies last hosted the All-Star game. And then that's how he came up in conversation. Also want to note that in that 1996 season with the Phillies, his lone one, he hit a career-high 30 home runs, and I don't think he hit more than 18 in his rookie year. 18 in his rookie year in 1987 was his previous career high, and he busted out for 30 with those Phillies in 1996 and then never hit more than 16 in a season again. So an outlying season in 1996, just one of those things.
Yeah, wow. He also was a member of the early 2000s San Francisco Giants, and yet did not hit. Well, he did have 2 of his biggest power seasons there over that span, with 16 in 2002 and 11 in 2003. Not, suggesting anything untoward by the early 2000 San Francisco Giants, obviously. But man, Benito Santiago, great pick, a great dude, and that was a good one. That's a fun. I too have I don't know if it's still is around somewhere. Maybe it's like in a box at my dad's house or something. But the Rockies used to have that same thing where you could pick from highlights and record your voice over them. It was just like on the concourse at Coors Field, out in right field. And I remember doing that when I was a kid. All these similar baseball experiences that we all had growing up. This is how fans get created,
Yeah, and look, Tyler, you grew up to be that little kid on the concourse at the
I do it
Rockies
now.
game.
Yeah.
Now calling baseball all over the globe. It's
Kinda cool.
incredible.
Well, Benito Santiago, wherever you are, we salute you today. A 20-year Major League veteran and a guy who, has, so many times we talk about guys who have seen more in baseball than probably anybody else. A catcher who plays 20 years in the big leagues. There are very few things that Benito Santiago has never seen in a baseball game. Although I would imagine he never saw a guy slide over the top of a ball and bury it into the field. So
Probably not.
this game is still creating memories. Yeah, it's amazing. All right, you guys. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. This is a fun one. And again, if you have any thoughts, any questions, if you are somebody who knows the rule book inside and out and you have a concept of what a ball being pushed into the ground by a sliding fielder should mean, get in touch with us. Podcast at MILB.com. And for Sam Dykstra and Benjamin Hill, my name is Tyler Maughan. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next week.